Okay. In case the questions back.
Okay, yes, no.
Oh, good, okay. And does he want to do that presentation or
It will be
discussion night? It will be nice.
9B. So I'm going to change that right now.
Presentations?
Under graduation.
Gotcha.
We're on under graduation. Right? Talk about that. Graduation, right?
Yeah. I'm going to talk about the.
She had an appointment. Yeah.
Okay, we're all ready?
Oh, I have to.
Oh, sorry.
An email.
Just let me know when you're ready.
Just have to take the roll call.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with Pledge Allegiance to flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everybody. All right. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes from February 13th as presented?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And we have the approval of CSD, CPSC recommendations. Are there any questions on that? Would you like to go into executive session? Or do I have a motion to accept them as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Just make sure I'm not. Okay, we are up to public comment. I'll read the statement since it's been a little while. The Board of Education welcomes and encourages input from the public at our board meetings. Please note that neither the board nor the administration may engage in dialogue or respond to questions concerning personnel or student matters. This is not an attempt to restrict public comment, but is done to protect the privacy of the individuals involved as required by law. As a matter of courtesy to others in attendance, comments or individual groups should be limited to less than 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment? No, you made me read that from nothing. Do we have any students here? Or any student classes? One? Would you mind stating your name?
Brett Charles.
All right, welcome. All right, and we are up to new faculty. I understand that we have mentors introducing new faculties, but if the mentors could also introduce themselves as well. Who wants to start?
I'm Jennifer Lamro, the Earth Science teacher here in the building. I am presenting Philip Kleinman. Philip is currently teaching living environment and a section of Earth Science. He received his bachelor's from Ramapo College in New Jersey,
Right.
and he got his master's in biology education from Toro College in Westchester.
Yeah, Westchester.
Nice. Welcome.
Welcome.
Yep. Thank you, guys. I'm excited
you.
excited for this opportunity. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good. I'm next. Christina Hewitt, special ed middle school. I'm introducing Jeannie Cherniak, who you probably know even better than I do, because she's every time I mention something, she goes, I know that person, I know that, I grew up here, I grew up there. She said I should introduce her as the sweet face.
I did not.
Who took on a delightful challenge. And she definitely took on a challenge. She came in here, she has math, AIS, different kids every other day, and a lot of the kids I know, and it hasn't been easy, but she's working really hard. and I appreciate the opportunity to work with her. Thank you.
Welcome and welcome back.
I appreciate being back here. It's kind of cool.
Thank you.
Hi, Deb Little, middle school counselor. I am introducing Asia Gressler. Asia is sort of local. She graduated from Morris High School. She went to her undergrad at SUNY Brockport and then got her master's at the University of Alabama. You may recognize Asia because she was an aide in our district, and then she started as the 8th grade special ed teacher in November. And we're great buddies because we're both Duke fans. But she enjoys spending time with her husband, Zach, her 2 dogs, and she also likes the Boston Red Sox, which I'm a Yankee fan, but we'll get over that.
Well, welcome. I hope that you have an enjoyable, successful rest of the year.
Yeah, one more.
Thank you. Huh?
Yeah, one more.
Oh, we have one more? Oh,
Hi, it's my pleasure to
there we go.
introduce Samantha Miola. She is our new registered nurse in the middle school, high school nurse's office. Samantha attended SUNY Delhi's registered nursing program, got her associate's degree there. She earned a 3.31 GPA. She got her LPN with Delhi, had a 3.5 GPA. She's worked at O'Connor Hospital in Delhi in several different roles, and also worked as a manager at Robinson Terrace. We are very happy to have Samantha here. She's doing a great job.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, we are up to number 4, discussion items. And I believe we have, one of our discussion items is to announce that we have our board goals. And let me just get this information together. We have chosen 3 goals in an effort to focus on what we felt would encompass overall district success, and that could be measurable as well. And our first goal is Walton teachers will be empowered to provide academic instruction and supports tailored to the need of each child. Then we have goal number 2, Walton's technology, transportation, and physical infrastructure will provide all students with access, support, and opportunity to maximize their learning. And then goal number 3, Walton students will graduate as lifelong learners, equipped with the academic and soft skills they need to be successful in the college or career paths they pursue. Does anybody want to elaborate on any of that? And then one other thing that I had, we had done a letter of support for the town of Walton. And this actually came to me at the town hall for the board president. I think they had a mailing confusion. But we had supported the town of Walton with their Third Brook Bridge project that actually was put out a delay date of 2022. And in doing so, Corey, when you sent out those letter of support to the Senator Bonasek, he had sent back this letter, and I just want to read this section. The town of Walton has been forced to deal with significant flooding issues over the years and has identified this project as key to minimizing the impact of future adverse weather situations and reducing the impact of future flooding on local businesses and residents. I urge you to take whatever steps you can to bring this project forward and expedite it. Thank you for your time and consideration. So that was nice to get a little bit of feedback at the state level. And then the other one we're going to do in new business, right? The letter support. Does anybody else have any other discussion items they want to talk about? Okay, we are up to correspondence. We have a meeting for the Workers' Compensation Insurance Alliance Consortium. That's Friday, April 13th. Butch, are you still interested in attending that?
Yep.
Okay, and I know Marilyn had gone in the past. She's
It's set
not
up
here.
so anybody can go. It's not, doesn't have to be just one or
Just
the
one?
other.
So if anybody else wants to check their calendars and see if they want to attend, and I'll let Marilyn know about that as well. And then the DCMO BOCES annual meeting that will be held at the Herald Campus Center will be Wednesday, April 4th. All right.
What is the time frame on Friday, April 13th?
We leave the school bus garage at 5 o'clock and we're usually back in town by 9 o'clock. And they put on a very good supper and the meeting doesn't take that long.
Okay.
Tim, are you interested in going to that or not?
Don't know.
Okay, no, it's
It's
just,
the 13th. Let me look at my calendar.
all right, no, like I say, past business agent went to all of them, so I was just asking.
Yep.
If you do, like I say, we just gotta have a car set aside so we can leave.
Do that.
Do they give us the menu ahead of time?
They have a good assortment down there. They've
Well,
always had that.
We appreciate you always representing us there, Butch. Okay, we are up to presentations. And first we have William B. Ogden Free Library, James Haggerty.
Yes. Thank you. It's good to see all of you, and sort of a ritual once a year here. But we're excited about all the things going on at the library. But today we're just basically here to request that we be put on the ballot for the usual annual voting in May. So I think that Robbie Jean unfortunately couldn't be here. She's traveling, so she expressed her regrets. But it took three of us here to take her place. So
And she's down south staying away
here,
from
and Glenn Miller. So we just wanted to say hello to everybody. Anyway, here's the actual request. The Board of Trustees of the William B. Ogden Library are again requesting that the school board include the library on the ballot at the budget voting time, May 15th, 2018. The library is requesting a 1.5% increase in taxes to be collected by the school district and distributed to the library in a timely manner. The increasing taxes collected for 2018 will amount to $122,085. That's an increase of $1,804.
Okay. And I know that's not a lot for an increase, and we appreciate what you do there. I do have one question.
Sure.
We're always under, the public's eye of keeping our budget, at a certain percentage. What is the purpose of the 1% or 1.5% increase?
That's a good question. And I think, as you know, the library has been very fortunate in getting a board that's very active in getting grants, and we've gotten legacy from some wills, and we're much better than I know when I first joined. We were like, every year just wondering how we're going to survive. But this is a program for the population of Walton and Township, and we think of this. When this amount of money is very minimal, I've thought about it. It's sort of like maybe if you want to have breakfast at TA's, or go for lunch at the Feather and Stone or the Penguin, or dinner at Danny's, and I thought it's about that, maybe less than even that. And those places just reminded me of the community, that this is your library. So we wanted to make that point, and I guess the other point I would like to make, that's just a point to make sure that we keep the library as important to people to support. But we want to make it very minimal, and matter of fact, we don't foresee any major increase in the future because of our fortunate abilities to raise money through grants and to have this, sort of an endowment that we have. Mm-hmm. What I should point out, though, is that the taxes that we receive from this amount from the taxpayers here in Walton Township don't cover even the operating expenses of the library. So, in other words, every year we are subsidizing that, and we're subsidizing those taxes through the endowment and through grants. Mm-hmm. We also have a very challenging year coming up because, actually another number of years, because the building itself, maybe just if I could talk briefly about some of the goals. The goals of the library, we have a 10-year plan for the capital improvements. The library is a really old building because of lack of funds for so many years. It's over 100 years now. Many problems have to be addressed. If you remember, if you've seen the bluestone steps coming into the library on both sides, Glenn actually here has been spearheading this capital improvements, and with volunteer help from Kurt Van Buren and Alice Van Buren. And it's just really beautiful. It's made the library so much more attractive out there, and it's really was absolutely necessary to improve that. Well, there are all kinds of problems like that. I mean, we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars. Now, we have been successful in getting grants, and Kurt has been very helpful with Glenn to work on these very complicated proposals through the state to get money. And we got significant money because of this volunteer work to do this. But even getting that, there is major cost. We have to have some input into that, significant money to put into that. So our plan is to also think about the future. We don't, we could just say, have any taxes at all, let's just use all the money up, then we'll be right back to the problem we had. We're thinking of the next generations and how to do this, but in a way that really the expansion of the library, we see the board wants to make sure we can pay for that through grants and through using the endowment. And we're doing some exciting things. And I think besides that capital improvements, I should mention programs. I don't know if you're familiar with the Grant Rogers Project. This is a collaboration with Music on the Delaware. And this has been such a successful program. We've been interviewing people, and we've been capturing the spirit of the community here by interviewing people who knew Grant Rogers, his music, and that's a culture that was 150 years, probably here or more, of music community and things that we really want to support and encourage and develop in new ways in this century. And we were amazed at the response. I mean, we also went into the digital world. I'm not a computer person, but we got help to form a website. And we had a website launch just a year ago. We're going to have a celebration of that coming up, a retrospective. And we had the biggest crowd we've ever had on a day at the library. I think at least 150 people passed through that library on that day. We had the kids singing Bessie the Heifer with Grant Rogers. We had Grant Rogers singing with him. we had pictures. We had Nicole Fisher, who was playing from the high school there as a senior with Carol Erlandson. We had Bill Seneschal, Randy Holst. Not only that, we had the community there. At the end, it was a spontaneous jam session, with just singing in community. It was totally amazing. It energized us. We've done now, I don't know if you know this, but we won, we're very proud of this, we won 2 blue ribbons at the county fair for the Grant Rogers exhibit. And the project was awarded the Delaware Historical Society, County Historical Society of Delaware County, awarded us a special award, annual award, for all the work on this Grant Rogers project. I'm just using this as an example of how we are trying to reach out to people. And we need to do it in many other ways too. But they were great successes, and we're using Jessica Vecchione, has been helping us to do some of these workshops that we had for Grant Rogers during the year to edit them and present this to the community about the dance, the music, the community. And I think we're going to present it in a very attractive way. Also, the website has been very effective in, people, that's how they communicate today, right? Not us, but that generation does. And we've had all kinds of hits to that. So what we're going to do is spread these workshops and things where the library are very successful, maybe 25, 30 people. It's great for us. But what we want to do is now edit these things and then present it to the whole community through the social media.
I know you have wonderful programs there, and I know a lot of preschool children go for reading time and stuff. One thing that you touched on, though, was the Delaware County Historical Society. I don't remember, but is the library on the New York State registry for historical buildings? Yes. It is, okay.
So, but they awarded us, it was just because of this particular project, they thought it was very innovative, and it was nice to be recognized for that. nice for our town. So,
Well, thank you.
so yeah, you could have to stop me because I'm Irish. You have me here a lot. So I appreciate your help, and we look forward to have a St. Patrick's Day. Good
Well,
St.
thank you for coming and explaining
Thank you
that.
very much.
All right. Now we have Mr. Kanuski with graduation rates. I think some of this information is in our packet.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I think I'll have to drive this in again. So what I've prepared for you, I think is a fairly comprehensive look at our graduation rate over the past 5 years, and a pretty short format. I've kind of boiled down several different looks for you. And the first thing you're going to see might be a little confusing, because sometimes it's confusing to us who are, knees deep in this every day. I've got a graduation rate for the last 5 years for O'Neill High School, then also for Walton Central School District. There is a difference. The state does report it out 2 different ways. The top one is just the kids that are instructed and get a diploma from our high school. The second one is for the district, and that includes students who may be getting their instruction and getting their diplomas and degrees in facilities or buildings outside of our district. Okay, some of our special ed kids and kids that may be in a separate setting, specialized setting. So if you look at the numbers there, I've got the percentage, but then I've also got the number of kids out of that cohort that got a diploma. For the top one there, and you can see what we're looking for, honestly, is upward trends. You're going to get some fluctuation from year to year, because if you look at our numbers, 80, 62, 74, 55, 71, those are pretty small cohorts. So 1 or 2 kids can make a significant difference in your percentage, a point or more. But overall, from 2012 and 13 to 16, 17, we've gone from 83 to 87%. So there's an upward trend. Bit of a little, 15, 16 was a little bit higher. That group right there was smaller and a very strong group in terms of kids completing and getting their diplomas. But I will show you another look at those same groups of kids in a couple minutes. And then, of course, under Walton CSD, we see where it's been an upward trend of 5% approximately, from 80% back in 2012-13 to 85.5. I will also tell you this, the percent that we came up with internally, that we calculated, hot off the press right at the end of the school year last year, and then looking at the school meter, which is an organization, a service that we use to look at data, and in the state, we had 3 different graduation rates. So sometimes there are even variations, and depending on who's reporting out on it, some kids get included in a cohort, and some don't, who probably should be included in there. So I actually have to call into the state, trying to figure out where the discrepancy is. We're not talking about a huge difference, but there is some difference. In the next slide, I've broken it down by demographics, and I took the O'Neill High School data, not the district data, but I took the O'Neill High School data, very similar. You've got your percent going across from the last 5 years, and then you've got the actual hard numbers where I got the percentage from. Now, to me, the interesting part is when you look at our all students, okay, and then general ed, okay, that's the percentage without special ed students, and you will see some fluctuations there as well. But again, the big picture is if you look at the overall trend for all students, general ed, and then economically disadvantaged and not economically disadvantaged, you see a general upward trend from 5 years ago. And now, the one that does stand out, and that's something that we're looking at internally. Why do we have such a discrepancy there? Students with disabilities, you see kind of a seesaw up and down effect. But if you look at the actual hard numbers, we're talking about cohort groups, or a group, demographic group of only 13 or fewer kids. So if you get a very strong group of kids that have IEPs, that are learning disabled, in the case back in 15, 16, 5 out of 6 of those kids were completers. So that's a very high percentage. But again, you're talking about a very specific group, and that can change from year to year. So the smaller your number, the more the margin of error can increase, the smaller the number. And then as the numbers go up, the margin of error decreases. Okay, next slide. Now this one I think is most impressive last year. Again, I've taken the high school data and I've broken it down into the types of diplomas. Okay, so for local diploma, you do see a fluctuation that goes from year to year depending on the kids that you have But these numbers are taken for the total number of kids who received diplomas, not the total cohort group, but the kids that received diplomas. So for 2012-13, for example, 9 out of 67 got local diploma. That's 13.4% out of the kids who got a diploma. Now, Regents and above is a Regents diploma or higher, meaning advanced diploma. And again, the general trend over the last 5 years is upward with some slight fluctuations. And then below that, you've got your Regents. Now, you may look at the difference between 15-16 and 16-17. You say, well, wow, there's a huge drop there from 85.7% down to 53.2. Well, the reason is, look at your Advanced Regents Diploma category. Look at the huge jump we took. 34.9% of our kids, 22 out of 62, got Advanced Regents Diplomas. That means they're taking more advanced courses, more advanced math, and I'm not going to go all the specifics for that, but that's a more difficult diploma to get. So we've been doing some things, I believe, here about offering more college level, more advanced courses, having more kids take part in our advanced math courses, and we're able to get to that level again, an overall increase, and that's what you want. You want to see that advanced Regents level going up, as well as your Regents and above level. That means you're getting more kids taking those advanced courses. Okay, some of the factors that will hurt or count against your graduation rate: student dropouts. We all know that. Now, there are kids that in this last year's cohort that I never personally met because they may have dropped out back in 9th grade and gone someplace else, moved out of the area, but they dropped out first. Those kids count against our graduation rate. Sometimes if they only show up for a month, let's say they come to us with 2 credits. We had a case like this, I believe last year. We had a kid come to us from out of district, had never been here. He had 2 credits in 4 years of high school. And, you know, unfortunately for him, and we did try to work with him, he decided not to complete after he showed up for about, 2 weeks. That counts against the district and the school as far as graduation rate. Students that graduate in August, January, or in the following spring. Okay, so if we have a student that graduates in August, goes to summer school, graduates in August, that does not count for our graduation rate. It counts against the graduation rate for that school year. Now, we talk about the numbers and they are important. However, our goal is always to just make sure a kid graduates. I don't personally, it doesn't matter to me if they graduate in June, August, the following year or not. I want to make sure they get that diploma, whether it's in 4 years or 5 years. Students with disabilities who receive CDOS only credentials or diplomas. So a student with an IEP, also students with multiple disabilities that qualify for alternative assessments, they may meet all the requirements in their IEP. They may get that CDOS credential, which is occupational ed, kids that go to BOCES. So they've done everything they're supposed to, they've met their goals, they've worked hard, but they don't count as a graduate to the district, which is kind of interesting to me because we recently got a legal policy update from the state that those same students have to be included in graduation ceremonies, which we already do. We've been doing that in practice, but yet they don't count for the district as far as completing a program. Now, I would submit to you they do. Just one of those things that we have to take into consideration. And factors we believe that have led to these increases. One, our summer school program, Regents retakes and credit recovery. I went back and looked at some of the numbers, and we have kids, particularly when you talk about kids that are recovering credits. If they don't get that credit during the school year, if a kid doesn't advance to the next grade level, the chances of them dropping out increase significantly. So for them to recover those credits and get to that senior year with a senior year status, that goes a long way. Passing Regencies that are required for graduation requirements, they not only have to get credit, but they have to pass a certain number of Regents exams. They have that second, third chance to pass that exam in our summer school program. Our at-risk identification and interventions resulting from our weekly counselor administrator meetings. We started this a couple years ago. We do it in the high school and the middle school level, where counselors and admin meet and they go through a list of students as part of that agenda every week. And we identify who's on the radar, whose names have been submitted to an RTI for interventions. At-risk student identification interventions resulting from weekly RTI meetings. We keep track of those kids who have been referred for response to intervention. Weekly data team meetings. We've got data teams in both buildings, and I say both buildings because everything that Mr. Gates and Mr. Snyder are doing in their buildings building up to the high school, that eventually will have an effect on a positive effect on our graduation results. But we do have those data team meetings where we're looking at not just trends and performance in the schools, but also looking at individual kids and what are we doing for them. Some of the things that have come out of our data team meetings. We're looking at our math quantile levels in each of our high school students now all the way up to sophomore year. We're now looking at, in the high school, at their reading levels. And the freshmen, we're starting looking at sophomores, juniors, and seniors' reading levels, monitoring those on a quarterly basis. Principal level attendance meetings or hearings. We started that a couple years ago, and we actually will send letters out, we'll call parents, and we have them come in for a hearing or a meeting to talk about attendance issues with students, even seniors. We had meetings on our seniors. At each of our weekly meetings with counselors, we start in October by having a section on the agenda called At-Risk Seniors, where we start looking at where they're lacking attendance grade-wise. We come out with a plan basically for them. Being semestered, we're fortunate. We can play catch up with them if they don't have a good first semester, but we put together those plans and specifically meet on those kids to have backup plans in place to help them graduate. And then significantly improve math instruction and the creation of the math labs. If you specifically look at the advanced Regents diplomas, the thing that was keeping kids away from reaching that advanced Regents diploma level was the fact that they were not opting to take those advanced math courses required to get that advanced Regents diploma. We've had some, even the teachers who have left and we've hired ones in their place, we've got some really crackerjack math people, and they've done a great job with those advanced math courses, and the math labs have really improved their odds of doing well in those exams as well. So that's our graduation rate report for the last 5 years in a nutshell. I'm sure you have questions specific to the information. I'd be happy to answer them if I can. If I can't, I'll find out.
It looks like the historic graduation rates for all students, it's really matching the state trend, isn't it? Isn't the state trend somewhere in that 3 to 4 range?
We've seen the state going up,
right?
And some of the schools more than others,
right?
But yeah, we've matched them. And I did go back and look though. We have not fallen below the state graduation rate, I don't think, for several years. So we've done a good job of keeping pace.
Do you think that we've outpaced that average?
I'd have to go back and look at the state. I didn't put the state comparison on there. I did look at that last year. I can put that together for you.
Yeah, but
that's easy to put that. Yeah, I can put that field in there. That's easy.
Good work.
To follow up with the summer school, you touched on that a little bit, but on a budgetary level, I'm sure you don't have these figures. I had asked for them, but I don't know with school being out, if you could get those figures to us. We're looking at the number of students for the last 3 years.
How many? The last 2 years.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, he's got over.
Okay. Yeah, if you could touch on some of that then.
Sure. I think our total expenditure for summer school is about $50,000 in that ballpark, out of a $22 million budget. It's really not. It's not a lot of money. It sounds like it's a lot of money, but in comparison to the whole budget. The year before I got here, I do know this. We had our kids going to BOCES for several years, and the last year that they went to BOCES, the summer school kids, we had 0% of the kids pass a Regents exam. Nobody. Not one child passed a Regents exam that they went up there to get prepped for. The first year we did summer school here, we did 8th through 12th grade, and of course 2 different programs, but the rough numbers, 24 high school students attended over 6 weeks, 8 middle school students. Program was 2 2-hour sessions, Monday through Thursday, and then we had 5 additional days of Regents review to go along with that. The courses we offered, and this will be the same for this past year as well, 16 and 17, Algebra 1, Algebra 2/Trig, Biology, Earth Science, English 9, 10, 11, Global Studies 1 and 2, and then 8th grade Math and 8th grade English Arts. Now, for the number of passing Regents exams for students who previously had failed, we had 19 out of 28 kids who had never passed Regents exams in those subjects. 68% of them passed. So we went from 0 to 68 in 1 year. And I think the biggest piece of that was it was our own people teaching the kids. They knew the kids well, they knew the program, they knew they had the resources here, we knew the families. The number of kids who attained credit, received recovery credit in those courses that they were here for. So some took the class to get credit. They didn't pass the class during the year, and then they also were prepping for Regents, but 95% of them passed those courses. Now, for this past school year, the past summer school, and this is, we want to put ourselves out of business, you know, for summer school. That's the whole name of the game. Eventually, it's to, you know, ideally you want to have nobody having to take summer school. I did a little research. I did contact a school district that's near and dear to my heart that has a graduation rate that's very competitive, and they, as successful as they've been, they send kids to summer school every year. They use BOCES down there. Again, I'm a proponent for us doing it in-house, but this past year we had 22 high school students here, but only 50 of them were for Walton. We had 7 kids from Downsville. We partnered with them this past year. And as it turns out, we had 50% of our kids pass the Regents exam. A little bit of a dip from the previous year, but again, if you look at the 2 years, it's still significantly higher than 0%. And almost 90% of the kids also received course credit. And we also had one student who graduated as a result of summer school. And she came to us from another district, and when she started here at the beginning of her senior year, there was almost no hope of her graduating. And through a lot of hard work and monitoring of the people involved, you know, in her education. And then I think she came just a little bit short, and we got her through summer school. She picked up 3 more credits, and she got her diploma. So we've had some pretty
So to be clear, 50% of the 22 passed, or 50% of our population?
50% of our population.
Okay.
50% of our population. I can pull the numbers
7.5
for Downsville, but I focused in on our Walton kids.
Right.
Now I want to say, and Mr. Gates can probably speak to the middle school
students. I know they all passed.
Mm-hmm.
I think 7 were Walton, 6 were Downsville.
Yeah.
I remember off the top of my head. But they all passed.
I'll say this, with, you know, we certainly can't go into detail about individual students,
Mhm.
Right.
but the kinds of students that we get going to summer school, a lot of these kids have a story, you know, that they come to the table with. And it is a struggle for them to even get to the building during the regular school year many times. There's a lot of things going on in their lives. And that summer school, a lot of times, is a second chance for them. It's a small bit of time, it's focused, very, very small class sizes, and it is a way for them to try and literally recover. And we've been very successful with it, and I think it gives some kids a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm a huge proponent for us doing it in-house, especially when I first got here, Roger and I looked at the passing rate from both seasons and said, we can't do this again. So we started it here.
How well received, from a staff standpoint, is it to have summer school? I mean, are your teachers?
We're just talking about this today.
Yeah, I mean, are your teachers really excited to be able to provide those opportunities to those kids that are just missed?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's very positive. We get really positive feedback. They understand some of them need a second chance, or they can be there and they can talk. And it's not, it's even the relationship between the teacher and the student. They've had them all year. They're coming back, and to be honest with you, some of those students, they feel like this is their second home. This is it. We offer the free breakfast and the lunch, so they get that included. And I've never heard anybody say anything negative. Any of the teachers, very positive.
It's a big morale boost too. The teachers most of them are looking for some work anyway, and some have worked for BOCES in the past. But I would rather have them doing the same job here. And they're going to supplement their paychecks for the summer, their income anyway. And it's a huge deal to them to be able to come back to their classroom, to their building, to work with their administrators and their counselors, helping with their own students.
And that's another piece. The counselors are also here, so then we've used them during the summer as well, during some crisis and things like that. So.
Now, I know we've reached out to Downsville, but is there a possibility in the future of reaching out to other districts?
Well, Downsville actually reached out to us.
Okay.
They came to us because they had previously been using BOCES as well, and they kind of heard of the success that we had with our population. I want to say one of the districts contacted us very late in the game, a couple days before we started, and we certainly couldn't turn that around because it would not have been.
Yeah, and we also look at the district that you're looking at. We looked at the dynamic of the students that were coming, high needs, and we didn't really want to put the mix in with with our students because it would create another agitation to the classroom. other services, so.
Yeah, I mean, these are
Well, that's
kids
just
that,
that you would need other services to
Right,
provide for them.
Right.
we actually offered PE last year too. We had several kids get recovery credit in PE. So we added that layer as well. But yeah, the kids who are coming to summer school are there for a reason in many cases. You know, that there's a history there with many of them. We're able to address that.
So the number for the pass and fail of the number of students that should graduate, is that determined by the number of students that start their senior year, or is that when they enroll in school originally?
And they start
out?
as freshmen.
As
a
freshmen.
4-year cohort when they first enroll as freshmen in a district. But yet, if they come to us, no matter when they come to us, if they're here, then they're going to come on to our graduation.
So even if they transfer in midway of their senior year,
Mhm.
it falls into us.
Mhm. And usually when they transfer in, and I'm not putting the kids down, when they transfer mid-year to another school as a senior, a lot of times there's a reason for it.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Mr. Knusky. We appreciate the information, and
Thank
it
you.
certainly gives us
Thank you.
something to talk about.
Yeah, anything else you
budgetary.
need, just let me know. I can throw some extra fields in there.
All right, thank you. All right, panorama survey results.
Right, so in front of you, you have the district summary of our panorama survey which was given, I believe it was last May. And I can go through each topic, maybe briefly talk about each, the climate, and the teachers, staff, family members, and students were all surveyed. Students meaning 6 through 12. The staff survey, we had 82 out of 118 take the survey. The student survey was 380 responses, and the family survey was 110 responses. And we really tried hard to get that number up. We did a couple emails, we did phone calls, we did letters. And that one's been a difficulty in the last couple of years. So you can see we broke each of these up. The administration did go over this. We did as a team through climate, and you can see some of them. For example, I can point out some of the ones that went up. Teachers and staff, the climate is 68%, went up 11 points. Communication, family members, 70%, went up 2. Teachers and staff, 44, it went up 2. Family engagement, which when we were looking at this, we were a little bit surprised by this. It was 46, it went down by 1. And, you know, we offer a lot of activities here and things for families and students to do. Teachers and staff, 76%, that went up 2. For high expectations, family, 51%, it went up 2. Teachers and staff, 90%, that went up 5. Instruction, family members, 62%, that went down 2. Our teachers and staff, 80%, that went up to 11. Leadership, family members, 76%, that went up 5. Teachers and staff, 80%, that went up 6. This one we were glad to see the sense of belonging by family members, 72%, that went up by 2. Teachers and staff, 79%, that stayed the same. Student engagement by family members, 60%, that went down by 3. Teachers and staff, 59%, that went up by 4. Support for the district, 76% for families. Teachers and staff, 84%, and that went up 14%. Teachers and staff for collaboration, 69%, that went up 2. Parental roles, teachers and staff, 49%, that went up 9. Safety, 80%, that went up 1. And supportive relationship for family members, 76%, that went down about 5. But if you look at the overall survey between the climates, communication, leadership, our instruction, high expectations, we were very pleased with seeing some of the increases in some of these results. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
Percent favorable, you're just listing that, those percentages are just your percent favorable? Is that what we're looking at here?
So if they responded favorable to that question, for example, the school has a clear code of conduct, 67%, I'm just giving you like a question, they responded.
So I mean, I guess for this to make sense to me, I'd like to see what the question is.
Yeah.
And then what the scale is, so we have an understanding of what that looks like. And then when was the last survey? It says this is a change since the last survey. What was the last survey?
Was spring of 2016. So what I'll do is I'll put the questions out for you in the library, so you can look at these.
Great.
Any other information. So then it breaks it right down in the details of each question.
And that also has how, as Graydon mentioned, like the metrics and how you would, it's just favorable or unfavorable?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's two.
Well, it says favorable, and then from spring of, for example, like the school has a clear code of conduct, 67% of family survey respondents favorable. In the spring of 2016, it was 66%.
Okay.
Is there a range with the questions? I mean, is it
Well,
like
that's what
0
I'm
to 5
trying to figure
scale?
out. Is it by
Or
a
is it a yes
scale,
or
do we
no?
know?
Or it sounds like it's just favorable or
favorable
unfavorable.
or on, right.
You like your scale.
It's a Likert scale 1, is it 1 through, was it?
Likert scale has got 5. I think it's 1 to 5.
Is it
Okay,
I
so
think it was
1 being the
through 5
lowest,
inside the survey.
5 being the
Right.
highest, say?
Yeah, well, usually Likert goes like
don't-
agree, strongly disagree.
Okay.
But I think some of them had like 1 through 5, do you agree, disagree? I can send I think I still have the original survey, so you can
Okay.
look at that and then
Yeah,
compare
just
the
raw data,
questions.
be able to look at it.
Yeah.
And this was the spring of 17.
That was last year, yeah. I believe May 2017.
Okay, safety update.
Evening all.
Hello. Where'd everybody go?
That'd be a great idea.
I know, I'm like, if we get into exact, nobody comes.
That'd be a great idea to kind of run down through like in the last 5 or 6 years, like, so a lot of the changes that have taken place here. As we all know, in the news, everybody's been talking about school safety since the shooting in Florida. And, school safety here, we've always taken it seriously. It's something that we work on day in and day out. I mean, every day, every month. And when I think about a lot of the changes that we've done, actually since Mr. Clough came and he was, wanted to get us going on this stuff. We had changed from to Utica National Insurance Company. They were very proactive with safety issues. They've got all kinds of things on their websites for safety. So it was recommended to us that we bring in a safety consultant. So about 5 years ago, we had a safety consultant come in. They went through all of our plans, district level plans, building level plans. They sat down with us. We went through all our drills, tabletop drills. We did evacuation drill. The person was there, went through, watched how everything worked, gave us all kinds of recommendations and pointers, and moved us kind of where we are today. The safety consultant came in and they suggested a bunch of things, and one of those things was the creation or strengthening of our safety committee. And so we meet monthly and we discuss topics about school, could be at the bus garage, wherever. There's about 22 or 23 people on the safety committee, and there's spread throughout the buildings in the district. Mr. Williams over in the transportation department, elementary teachers, nurse's office, high school teachers, middle school teachers, our building superintendent of grounds, Mr. Jackson. So there's a lot of different people from different areas that are on the committee. And one of the things that first came out of our safety committee was the creation of our emergency preparedness manuals, and those are the things that are over on the walls. And if you've never had a chance to look through them, it's a good idea to go through them. It talks about how every staff member, every student, they're ready to react to any type of incident. And those manuals are found in every classroom, as I said before. Every year we do training throughout the district with our staff. We go through them multiple times. And we also train substitute teachers when we interview them. We sit down and actually talk about when you're in the classroom, these are the things you're going to need to know. And everything's spelled out exactly the way it should be in those manuals. I'm not going to go through every single one of these. If you guys all have this handout, right? The yearly updates to our plans submitted to the state. This year we changed format. Corey Franer spent hours and hours time going through and formatting stuff into the digital format that the state recommended that we use. And the reason they did that was because every responding police officer from different agencies will be able to call up certain information about our school. They're on here, there's an incident going on, they're driving up and they're getting data about what's going on with the school, who's people in charge, numbers they should be calling, whatever. One of the things that came out of our consultant who visited was our drills. Not only do we do many different types of drills during the year, but we've really increased the quality of the drills. Mr. Kanuski, one of the first things he did when he came here, he said, we only have like 3 radios. We all need to get radios. We all need to be able to contact one another in an event, an emergency, whatever it might be, fights, a breakout in the cafeteria, whatever. So we updated all of our radio systems. We purchased a long-range repeater, which allows us to pick up signals. I mean, you can be over at Austin Lincoln Park and use a radio to contact back and forth. So during our drills, we use radios back and forth. We check to find out if there's missing students. We're out to a fire drill. We have like 7 different zones around the school district, or up here at the high school and middle school. Mike does the same thing at the elementary school. We contact one another. Each zone talks about what students they may have that are extra, which ones that they may be missing, and we little by little, as we go around the zones, we find out every kid, we know where they are. So from that consultant coming in, we increased our quality of our drills, and we have better systems set up during those drills. Any questions so far? Going down through locker searches, we do those periodically. If we have a situation that pops up with something credible that we have to check on, we check lockers. We have good connection with the sheriff's department, and we can bring dogs in to do searches. Our social workers in our building are really one of those things that to me, I didn't think of as being a huge safety, something that increased our safety, but it really has become that because we have those social workers in our monthly, our Monday morning meetings. We talk about kids that are in crisis, and I'm supposed to go to a conference next Tuesday on health issues and health management, put on by Utica National, and having that connection with that social workers has been great because, like I said, we can get them involved, then they're going to give them preventive services to find out if a student needs to have contact with help at a medical facility or with drug issues and things like that. So it's been a great addition. Our relations with the police agencies have become unbelievable. Over the years, and I've been in this position for a few years, and until about maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we rarely talked with police. Now we have every single one of them on our cell phones. We can contact anybody if we have a question, if we need them. They are here. Many this morning. They were in our Monday morning meeting. So they have great walkthroughs. We have liaisons from the troopers that stop in all the time, and it's just become a much better relationship with those agencies. Last couple of weeks, I would say we've probably had at least 10 or 12 officers throughout the buildings walk around. You probably have the same, Mike, they're visiting you. Yeah.
And that actually touches on, I had a phone call just before our board meeting from a resident who is actually a parent and now grandparent of students that have gone through the district. One of his concerns was, of course, the Florida shooting and everything that happened there, but more importantly is how they participated in the national walkout. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to know what we did. I don't think we had school.
Yeah, so we had the snow day, but we had it planned. And actually, Mr. Newski and I met with them again today, We're going to do a moment of silence tomorrow morning for 17 seconds because they
Okay.
missed it. And then there's a national walkout on the 20th that we're starting to form right now. But the plan was to we had different rooms for 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. And anybody that wanted to leave, they could go to those rooms. We would have adults there for each of those grade levels with counselors. But it didn't work out that way due to the fact that we had a snow day. And so it was good today that we got to speak with them at the end of the day, and they agreed, let's just do the 17 seconds tomorrow morning, and let's work on the 20th for the next time.
Okay, because that was one of his concerns. Are we gearing it towards an educational experience, but more importantly, focusing on keeping them safe within the walls of the school district, and also addressing mental health issues, and you just touched on that, that we are increasing that now, and then with the police presence being more frequent, I think that's also.
Yeah, and with the county, with children that are at risk, there's 3 different levels of help that the county can give. In some cases, it's not really help, it's like you start out with preventive services. It's a voluntary thing. A worker comes and visits the home, offers all kinds of different help, whether it's medical, things, or just someone to talk to. They can give them all kinds of different information on different agencies. So preventive service is a voluntary thing. If parents may accept that help and there's nothing attached, they just go through and call if they need things and whatever else. Following that, if things continue and there continues to be issues, we can file for what's called PINS diversion, and that's persons in need of supervision. That step is also voluntary. Both the parent and the child has to sign off that they want the help. And that's a more strict setting. That's monthly or weekly visits, having curfews, this and that. But it's a voluntary process. Some kids and some parents go through it and sign off. And some decide not to. And then we move to a court-appointed PINS, which is it's a pretty tough situation if you got somebody knocking at your door every day, drug testing you and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different levels that we can go through.
And with the Florida event, it sparked a copycat or a chain of events throughout the nation. Have we spoke to our children, or are we educating them on the mental health issues that go along with that, the reasons why people are doing the things that they're doing? Or are we touching on if you see a student that is being standoffish, quiet, keeping to themselves, to report that, to see if people are reaching out to those individuals?
I've actually recently, since the incident, I've had a couple different students come to me with that exact concern. Such and such seems like they need more friends, they need more time together, things like that. So I think the message, if you're putting a message out to them, it is reaching them, and they're going to adults they're comfortable with to have those discussions so that gets shared. I think that definitely needs to continue, because that's a positive step, not only for the student that feels affected by it, but maybe you can have a positive intervention prior to something happening.
So,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, today, actually, we had students tell us that that's what they're doing. They're reaching out, they're talking.
Right.
They feel uncomfortable about talking with some of the teachers and the guidance counselors. And one part of our series is that mental health awareness series that we're going to do. It's in May. But Rob, you might want to talk a little bit.
Well, yeah, we set up a series of events this year for the kids and for parents. The first one was internet safety, and then the second one is going to be in April. That's opioid dependence. Educating the kids in sessions in school, and then having a session at night, 6 o'clock, for parents. And we're opening it up to all the parents in the district, and we even sent it out to all the Delaware County regional counselors and all the other schools to open it up to them, because we have a large auditorium, and invited them as well. In May, we've got the mental health presentations, and then I think at the end of May, right before prom and graduation, we're doing one on drinking and driving. So, but we also, Ms. Lammer and the counselors and I met today talking about identifying at-risk kids. We went through, and our counselors found an instrument online that basically helps you assess a kid who might be at risk for hurting themselves or others. And we went through every single kid that we had any kind of information on at every single grade level in the high school filled out a form on the kids. And then we met with law enforcement because we can share information with them. We went through the kids that we had concerns about to see what kind of information they had. Now we exchanged that. So we're trying to get a 360 on the kids that we got concerns about.
Preventative.
You will reach out to Mary Moss, remember Mary?
Yes.
About this. She was actually supposed to meet us today at 9, and because of the delay, but we'll be talking with her, so we have a good partnership with her with the mental health issue. I think that's a big piece. I think we agree on that.
Yeah.
And that's where it's really, we gotta really hone in on and discuss and get that out.
Do we have canines on a regular basis coming through all buildings?
No.
Is there a?
Very difficult. The process to get one from the troopers it's a lengthy process. You write a letter, you get about once or maybe twice a year, they'll get them to come through.
Okay.
It's easier for me to call John DeMayo and bring them.
Well, I guess that was more my direction. I'm asking is there something in place where you have, on a school year, we are going to have a goal of X amount of times randomly, obviously through the building? And then my follow-up question was, when was the last time a canine was through the buildings?
I'm gonna say end of last year was probably the last time before Regis exams. So we can do one. Yeah, we can do whenever. It's just getting a hold of him and he can set something. A lot of times they're doing a training and they'll bring in multiple dogs.
Right. And I think that they've always been dedicated to the schools as far as helping out goes. So it's a resource that I don't want to lose sight of that resource. I think that's a great deterrent in the schools, and it also gives the insight for the officers to be through here and be more comfortable doing that. So
it's amazing. You know, talking with them, you know, the amount of times that we've had them in, and they talk about they're like, schools don't want us to come in. I'm like, why not? I mean, I don't believe we've ever found any drug paraphernalia with a dog here, but it is a great resource, like you said.
And I think it's something you should definitely put a target on X amount of times per year, so that the kids are used to seeing that. And
right.
I think it's a great deterrent, and I'd rather be proactive with it.
Yeah.
Especially if you have somebody like DeMayo and that's willing to do something like that from sheriffs. That's a great thing.
And we generally, when they come, we do a hold in place drill, basically. So we call a hold in place and walk them through.
Mark, you're talking about the students at risk and things like that, but are we doing any training just for the, how I want to put it, the effect that a foolish moment would have on your life by making, like some of these schools, they've had these kids that, I don't know if they've got issues of any nature or not, or if they just made a bad decision and decided it'd be whatever and they'd make a threat against the school. Well, it affects their lives now forever, this day and age. I mean, so are we?
We just did one.
Okay. Right, to understand what a felony is.
Right, and why.
And what age.
The presentation we had last week, or was it 2 weeks ago now, with the internet safety and stuff like that, he touched on it several times.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's crazy. We talk about it all the time, the differences when I grew up versus now, and you know, the whole, you know, social media world and what the difference is. It's made growing up so difficult for kids, some kids.
Reading ahead, the phone system, you know, with it having the capabilities that it does, have we ever thought about the records management aspect of that? Like, how long do we keep recorded phone calls? Is there a requirement to that with the new system?
We don't.
You mean when an emergency call is placed?
Yeah, like is that required for the district to keep, you know, track of that for X amount of
I could check
years or
with records?
And I know video footage and things like that we have.
Right.
Maintain files,
yeah, but like with a phone, you know, when the notification goes out, you know, is it a requirement to keep that on our end now versus just a verbal phone?
I'll look at that.
Is there a state policy on that, records retention?
We follow ED1, but sometimes an item like that may not be in there.
Right.
New technology, it's just not up to date on it.
Yeah, I'll tell you that phones thing I had there, I didn't realize what a huge tool it was going to be when we started talking about changing. We've been talking about changing phones systems for years, and Rick has done a great job with putting all these different things together with our phones. I mean, we now have a quick way for any teacher to go to their phone and hit emergency. It automatically calls any secretary's administrator's office. They can let us know, hey, there's something happening, what's going on. all administrators and their secretaries now have lockdown and hold in place buttons on their phones, so there's no like thinking you just hit the button and it automatically announces it. Rick was testing them this weekend.
Sunday morning.
Sunday, if you want to chat a little bit.
Every one of them work except yours. It's just basically a quick way. You walk up, you press the button. It has an automated emergency sound. It's pretty annoying, but it grabs your attention. After that, it's an automated message. And every message goes directly by the booklet that Mr. Lamoureux put together in the safety committee. So lockdown is just, there's a loud emergency beep, and then it's lockdown, 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 lockdown. And then it's over. And people should do what they're supposed to do. The nice thing about it is that it removes all human error. There's nobody fidgeting to push the number sign and 00 to page and then stumbling over their words. It's all pre-recorded. Press the button on the phone, comes over the speakers, hang up the phone, hopefully everything's in order. So all the administrators, the secretaries, we put it on the nurses' phones. They're out front. Nice thing about the system is you push the button, gives the automation, gives the sound, gives the warning. It automatically sends emails to the administrators. It automatically sends text messages to their phones. Keeps a log of the event. Honestly, it's great.
Are our policies adequate in effect right now to cover something like this? The outdated phone system, have we kept pace with our policies? Is that something we should be reviewing?
I don't think we have a policy on phones or.
I mean,
might be under
so
our
we're talking about
safety.
recordings, we're talking
Technologies,
about,
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of complicated, it's a web here, I mean, basically, think about it. You've got video recordings, you have phone recording potentially, you have, I just wanna make
Well,
sure.
we're not
that there's-
recording anything via the phones right now.
Okay.
So that's the only retention part that I can see with the phones. The email that's automatically generated, it's just an email from our system, so that would be something the safety committee would probably, and Corey would have to look into. I honestly think it would just go by the email guidelines, how long you have to save an email. That would be my own personal opinion, I've never looked into it. We basically just sat down as a safety committee, went down, I gave them what the system is capable of. They came up with a design, we worked towards a design, and that's what we implemented.
I'm thinking like if an event ever happened, like in Florida, how the police may be coming in saying, you know, what was your procedures? How were your procedures carried out? You know, and it sounds like you guys have done a remarkable job of setting that all up, but now are we required now to keep track of that stuff for law enforcement? Is the NISBA, is that?
New York State Archives, I can check with our regional officer.
Okay, and then as far as a policy, maybe we can check with the policy committee and they can look into.
Or NISBA?
Yeah.
With the policies?
Yeah.
And one
Because
of
it's
the
just
things-
so new,
Yeah.
the technology. That,
And one of the things we talked about during our safety committee, and also, I don't know if you mentioned, Mark, the police department, fire department, EMS is on our safety committee. And when the chief was here, I brought the idea of them having access to our cameras. And they would only use that access if there was ever a lockdown or
Emergency
something like
situation.
that. So we're going to continue that conversation, and that's another thing that I have to look into. I know they can have access to that, even if they're at the station or in their car. So if there was an intruder, they would know exactly where that person is, because they could just, look at our camera.
Look at the
So
cameras.
That's one thing that we're
Wow.
going to look into
I
as
know
well.
in our last meeting, we talked about, one of these meetings, I can't remember, we talked about we saw a video of the safest school in the United States, and they had their cameras linked to the sheriff's department and their state. They had a few other crazy things that went on, doors automatically locking, bulletproof glass in all the windows. Smoke that came down on the person and incapacitated them with noise, and it's kind of crazy.
amazing.
Lastly, we talked about phones. On the horizon, Rick is working with key card access, which is going to be a huge help. And one of the nice things is all the doors having sensors on them. Although they're not key activated or card activated, they will still have a sensor to know whether they're open or closed. So 2 o'clock in the afternoon, if we have, that down at the end of B wing, a door was released, I can go back, it can tell me exactly what the time was, and then we have a camera right there. We can see who went in and out of the door. If it's a student, we can educate them on, hey, don't use those doors at that time. So they're going to be really nice. New camera systems, the IT guys Rick and Ryan have been working on installing new camera systems. They're unbelievable. They're so clear, so much more capabilities than the other cameras. Able to zoom in on things. I don't know how many we have in the high school activated right now, maybe 15, 16?
I think you started naming them, didn't you?
Yeah,
I thought you did. There's about, I looked today and they're all named, and I'm like, who's in the system? It was more. There's about 20 to 25 of the interior ones are all installed. So we have about 3 or 4 more to go. And then we got to move to the exterior of the building, which then we require some help from maintenance.
And how many, Mike, how many do you have, Mike?
29.
16, but it's 16 inside.
Yes, 16 inside.
16
his are all
inside.
installed. We're having issues with one of them. Well, all of his are installed except it's installed, but one of them's not functioning.
Yep.
We'll figure that out.
But it should be a total of 16.
We were hoping we'd be outside installing them this week, but I think it's going to be a couple more weeks before we get outside.
And last but not least, the last thing I put on there, possibility of an officer be placed at both buildings, which is like a huge conversation you guys can have. I passed on a proposal from Captain Small from Delhi. He projected the possibility of having $50,000 to fund an officer building next year. And he said that they have some retired people he's quite sure that would be willing to work at one here, one over at the other school, $25,000 each. And seems to be a trend that everyone's talking about.
In the state, just the Senate, and I believe the Assembly just passed the 50,000 for the for SRO in each of the
You
schools.
saw it today?
Okay, so that'll have to be definitely a discussion that takes place. I know it's,
Did I email you that proposal? I can't remember if I did or not. From Captain Small?
Yes, you did, yes. But he's booked right now, and we did look into that, he's pretty much
He's
booked
booked
right
big, yes. The trainings that you see a lot of schools, I know Delhi did them, they did a series of trainings, and they did on a voluntary sign-up thing with their teachers. I think he said they had 12 or 13 teachers that came to the active shooter thing. And there's a bunch of different levels of the active shooter drills that they do. There's the one that they did there. We had one at our elementary school a couple years ago. That was with not live bullets, but rubber bullets. And it was like
I don't know, about 7 or 8 summers ago.
Was that long ago?
Yeah, it was.
Paul,
Yeah.
And so
Paul was, he wasn't the chief, but he was doing, he was taking a course. And they brought in hostages, they had body armor, they were shooting the playroom.
And I guess that type of drill is for police.
Yeah.
They do it in specific, buildings around wherever we'll take them. And the trainings for active shooter, it's highly recommended by a lot of different safety agencies that students are never involved in any of them. So we've always felt like, we don't want our students involved in that. I think Delhi had some kids that were actors or something that came with the people who put the presentation on.
Right, Delhi didn't use any of their own students.
Yep.
And Mark, just could you just inform the board of, we had the New York State Troopers here last spring and what they did last spring?
Their presentation was what goes on during an active shooter, so it was probably, it wasn't a live thing that they pulled. It was an active shooter drill that they videotaped. And so they went through, and the troopers were here. They gave a presentation in the auditorium, and we definitely can get them to come back in. We have great contact with the troopers, and they're willing to work with us. So something that we could do either at the beginning of next year, or we could do it at the end of this year again.
And also you reached out to Utica National, and what was their comments?
Regarding active shooter? Yeah, they said, Utica National said definitely no students. They would never recommend it. And the teacher's not a voluntary situation.
And I think from what I understand, how Delhi did theirs is they gave a 2-hour presentation. It wasn't actually the active shooter drill that the students,
and that's what everybody thinks it was.
But this was an actual where you sat in a classroom, setting, and you listened and they trained you, you might have watched video or something like that, but some students and mostly staff attended that. I think the New York State Trooper training is, along the same lines.
Yeah.
But then when they go to the active shooter training, that is for the police agencies, not so much for, the
Do we know
staff.
are they focused on like the run, hide, fight concepts? Is that what they were? I believe that's what they focused on with ours.
Yeah, that's a big thing that's out there right now.
Yeah.
But, well, we're certainly addressing it, so that's good.
Question for you on the cameras. They're being live monitored?
No.
They're not? Do we have that ability?
No.
So our cameras are record?
They're running actively, like, if we wanted to check something, we could go and look at it live. But generally, the stuff that we look for is recorded.
Okay.
But
But if there was an event, we would have the ability that somebody could go watch
Oh,
the
yeah.
cameras live?
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah, there's two modes. There's live mode and record mode at all times.
And is that something that we've been through with our law enforcement, that they would have, they're aware of what we have that way to, if there was an event, that they could get right to that quick, okay?
And that was he was talking about earlier.
That was our conversation we had it with.
They didn't request it, we offered it to them, and they said they would, definitely, if there was something going on, they would love to be able to pop on and see what was out there.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Nice job.
Okay, now we're up to additions to the agenda.
One more, correct?
Oh, Rick, I don't have anything, sorry.
Rick, you're probably fine with that, right?
Mr. Clough wanted me to quickly go over the IPA that's in tonight's consent agenda.
Yes.
I believe it was back in 2010, 2011, somewhere about there, where Tim McNerney started leveraging the IPA. We mostly use the IPA to replenish our classrooms and keep our technology up to date. When I say classrooms, I mean classrooms, offices, labs, libraries. There's a lot of technology here. The nice thing about utilizing the IPA is that we go through our local BOCES. So when we go through BOCES, we get 80 to 85% aid back on that. I'm not sure the exact figure, Mr. McGuire might know. It's somewhere in that range, though.
I can look it up. I can look it up.
So when you look at technology devices, the usual lifespan, or end of life it's called, is 3 to 5 years. So the replacement cycle is just nonstop. If we took Mrs. Dutcher's classroom, for instance, at Townsend, she has a ProWise board, teacher unit desktop, and 10 Chromebooks for a total of, that's about $72,000 to $8,000. Now at Townsend, there's 35 to 40 classrooms at $8,000 each. The high school classrooms are even more. They don't have, say, 10 Chromebooks per classroom here. We have Chromebook carts of 25 to 30. We have laptop carts. So we have 400 to 600 of them. So the average cost in high school, I haven't figured it out yet. I just figured out Townsend's is a little bit more than that. And here again, we have 35 to 40 classrooms. So by my rough figures earlier, you're at 600,000 and more. That's just classrooms. Now we have labs, libraries, which each have 25 and 30 desktops. We have iPads, we have offices, we have social workers who come in, we have, it's just nonstop. So you take that $7,500 figure, and this is where things get tricky. The IPA is actually directly tied to our Smart Schools plan, which the board approved in 2016. Inside that plan, we needed to include a plan of sustainability. How are we going to maintain the technology that we've either previously purchased or that we're purchasing with the Smart Schools money? So our plan of sustainability was to leverage the IPA. We actually have it planned out all the way till 2023, I believe. It changes a little bit, but we have teacher laptops in 2018 and 2022. We have teacher desktops 2019. This is just, for instance, it's not exact. But that's how we have it planned out all the way till 2023. The second method of sustainability was through the use of our local hardware and software budget, which I believe is around $15,000, $17,000. Now we take that, we split it up, so we get about $8,000 for hardware. That's an average classroom. So if you see where I'm going, if we just used my local budget and we didn't have to replace ink and toner and all the breakdowns of copiers and printers, and it would be like an 80-year cycle to replace one classroom's worth of technology. So that's where, for me, the IPA is just, it's a lifesaver. It's just a way for us to, and we're still behind. I mean, every year I'm getting 20 to 40 Chromebooks that we can't replace. I was just in another school district yesterday to compare where we're at because I wanted to see how we're doing. This classroom had a teacher laptop, this is an average class in their elementary, a teacher laptop, 4 desktops, and 10 iPads, a projector, and a smartboard. You're looking at $15,000 or $20,000 for every classroom in that school district. So 5 years ago, all we had here was a teacher desktop, smartboard, and a projector. And everything was old and breaking. Now, I mean, we're in a good spot, but we're still kind of behind. So it's kind of one of those give and take things. That's a pretty fast summary.
Can you touch on?
This is part of the consent agenda, so do we want to pull that and have further discussion?
I can say if it's pulled that there's no IPA this year.
She means just
No,
pull it.
yeah,
Pull it to
and have
discuss,
further
yeah.
discussion,
Oh,
so
okay.
it's not part of the rest of the things that we're voting on.
Yeah, so we, and then, because you'll still be here, then we can ask you a little bit more questions. So do you want to do that, and then we'll have further discussion on that? Or do you want to?
It's fine.
Okay,
Second.
all right, so,
It just means you can stick around a little longer.
yep.
I was planning on doing this today.
Rick, what's I know you and I talked about this, but an average classroom, you talked about your other district, and I know I think we're well below that.
We are.
What's the average how much would it cost for technology, like an average classroom?
The school district I was in yesterday would be $15,000 or $20,000. An iPad, we've moved to Chromebooks because they're so much cheaper. An iPad in the school district I was in yesterday, it was $500 to $750. We're getting Chromebooks for $225, $250. So we can furnish 10 in a classroom for what another school district does for, I don't know, five iPads. So we're still well behind, but at least we're in the ballpark now where it would be impossible, not impossible, let me take that back. The way the teachers teach these days are mostly in, Jane might be able to explain this better, they're clusters, what are they, small group? So take Mr. Snyder's, Mrs. Dutcher's class again. She has a reading group, and then they move to another group for Imagine Learning, and a lot of these groups are totally Chromebook oriented with apps on those Chromebooks. She does this so that she can sit down and, I'm assuming here, she can do her own little teaching lesson here with 4 or 5 kids. And the other kids are still learning, maintaining their focus on the small group activity, which is totally controlled through either the iPad or the Chromebook. We've again leveraged Chromebooks because, well, we don't have money for iPads here, but we can sure make do with these Chromebooks. So if those classrooms in Townsend didn't have 2 different stations or 1 station of the Chromebooks to keep 5 or 6 kids' attention, I'm not sure what would happen. I mean, they did it at one point, but that's just the way instruction has changed and centered now. So.
All right, so we'll go on with the consent agenda, and then we'll have further discussion on this. Thank you, Rick. Don't go nowhere.
Pull it, move second.
Yeah, well, first, did we have any additions to the agenda?
Actually, we pulled the state aid proposed resolution because that was past the deadline, as you had said.
Correct. Yep, apparently the legislative and the assembly has already come out with their suggestions, so.
Right, that was a non-consent item, so we just pulled that. And then we do have a new non-consent item, which is a proposed letter of support for a town project, Thomas Brook grade control.
Yes, and that, you said that was non-consent.
And that will be a non-consent item.
Okay. All right, so in our consent agenda, of course, we have the financial report and the transfer of funds, declared Teacher Appreciation Day for May 8th, and declared School Nurse Appreciation Day for May 9th. We have the approval resolution for the annual meeting and the budget vote, which I believe will be May 15th.
15th, right.
From noon to 9 p.m. And then there'll be 2 board member positions up at that time, Jennifer Fay and myself. We have the appointment of the election inspectors. And the approval of the installment purchase agreement, the IPA that Rick was just talking about. We have resignations and retirements, resignation of Ron Lynn and Mr. Kanuski. We have unpaid leave of absence and emergency appointments. We had to update, of course, our Title I coordinator, the homeless coordinator, and the safety committees and stuff with Jane O'Shea. And then the personal appointments and athletic recommendations. So,
Did we pull the installment?
yes, I would like to pull H before we vote on that. So with, does anybody else have anything else that they want to pull for further discussion? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, so then we can either go into this now or go on with our new business first. We'll go on to new business. We have acceptance of donations. We have a couple of donations. $1,926.40 for box tops for education for the Townsend School. Is that more than what we've gotten in the past?
That's like
That's a big one.
That's quarterly, but isn't that like a large amount one?
It's in that ballpark. It's 17 to 19.
Okay, wow.
It's in that. Sometimes they're a little less, sometimes they're a little more. But yeah, I mean that's a good one.
That's awesome. And then $299.50 from an anonymous donor for the establishment in memory, or the establishment of this scholarship in memory of Destiny Twyman. And where am I? Okay, so do we have a motion to accept the donations?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Then where did we put the letter of support? Was that B?
That
I know they
would be
moved up,
the
but I don't
last
have
one.
that. Okay, so we have an adopt that we removed the state aid. DCMO BOCES, there we are. Okay, I think I've reached out to a few of you, and since nobody seems to have time that they want to take on for the BOCES board, I would make a recommendation that we forego a nomination this year.
Make that motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so whatever districts to nominate, then we will, once we get the vote, we will take action then. And we have a leave of absence.
Right, this is a paid leave of absence.
Okay, so yes, this is a paid leave of absence for Mr. Hoover from his English position, correct?
Sixth grade position. Social studies.
Oh, social studies. Where am I seeing English? I'm making this up as
It
I
was
go.
English, eighth grade
That's
English.
right.
You're on.
There we go. All right, so do we have a motion for that leave of absence?
Move it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And we have emergency appointments. This would be an appointment for a long-term substitute to fill that position. left by Mr. Hoover, and that would be Susan Ackerley.
Make that motion.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And then we have personnel, these, when they go to the second page, I'm looking for the information, sorry. The stipend for the long-term substitute director of special education, Mr. Hoover.
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and then I sent all the information to you, and this was Monday's meeting at the town board. The town had applied for a stream management implementation grant, and this is for work to be done on Pines Brook Road. And as you know, our buses travel Pines Brook Road, so they thought that the school might want to provide a letter of support that they can, the application has already been submitted, but they would like to send in a couple more letter of supports. And this is the Walton Central School District hereby lends its notice of support to the application to the Stream Management Implementation Grant, SMIP, for monies to make grade control and improvements to Pines Brook, located within the town of Walton. Pines Brook Road is an important route for Walton Central School buses. Ensuring the Pines Brook Road remains passable is critically important for our students, these families, and all of the residents on Pines Brook Water Basin. The school district supports the town's efforts to improve water quality along with reducing eventual flood damage along Pines Brook. Please accept this letter as formal support of this funding application. And if anybody opposes it, or if we're in agreement and we want to provide that letter of support, we just need a nomination.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'll abstain it.
Okay, one moment. Now you should be up to the IPA.
Okay.
Because you read this, so I'll have to do that.
All right.
That's on my own stuff.
So with the IPA, since I've been on the board, I've been made aware of this. I don't know if the rest of you, had known that this is what we do. This is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but these are purchases that are made from BT BOCES. And what we do is BOCES purchases whatever dollar amount that is decided that's needed for that year. And then we make payments back to BOCES with interest over 5 years. So that's where that agreement comes to, where for this year, do I have the correct one? The $75,119.70? All right. So what that would do is that would break down the payment of $15,023.94 over 5 years. But we, and this is where I was asking for clarification, we could have up to, like this year could be 5 payments. Do we know whether we properly budgeted? And that's what Tim, is going to follow up with. But in 2013-14, our payments started out as $11,000, 15, 16, 16, 17, they jumped to $36,000.
That was because that was the time that we actually switched our centralized printing. So at that moment in time, every classroom had their own personal printer, and we were paying tens of thousands of dollars in ink and toner. So what they chose to do, it was led by Pam Brown, we went to centralized printing. We removed all personal printers, almost all the art rooms, and there's exceptions to every rule, and went to the giant copiers. And there's only copiers in centralized locations, such as the business office, the high school office, Mr. Klaus' office, and so forth. And that has cut down our printing costs by nearly, from how I glance at it, $20,000 to $30,000. And saved us a lot of money. So that's where that giant figure comes in. Our yearly installment for that year, I believe, was around $22,000. It's somewhere in that vicinity. I know the purchase, the IPA for that year was like 160 grand. The rest of them since then, you should notice, are well below that, around the 60 to 80,000, which is ideally what I've always been taught or told where we should keep it at.
Right, and that's what we started out as, 60 to 50,000
Right.
when I first came on the board. 2015-16, it was 180,000 and change, which gave our payment the 36,000. And then in 16-17, it went down to 135,000 and change, and also, kept that payment right around the same amount. So now we are back down to what we started, closer to what we started with at 11,000. So that's what I'm looking at as a budgetary, figure. What can we afford to put in there and still meet what we need for repairing and
I got a
replacing
couple questions on
equipment?
that. Did you come up with a reimbursement rate?
61.9.
61.9. Is that, so with that, I mean, we are getting reimbursed for some of that, so those numbers are elevated, obviously, because of that. If you paid a one-time payment, is that 61.9 reflected yearly on those? I mean, so if those are scheduled over 5 years, are we getting this 61.9% back on the initial purchase right up front, or is it on the actual payments themselves for the 5 years?
Just on the payment amount that is made each year. So if you
Yep.
have 5 of them at 15,000, it's on all 5.
And you said that, obviously, depends on which school you compare to, where we stand,
correct,
obviously.
correct.
But with this number in here, is this keeping pace with our technology needs?
The current number, yes. That'll keep us about where we're at right now, which is a $7,500, $8,000 figure in a classroom, maintaining our labs and libraries. Like I said, I have it planned out. We have it. Pamela Brown helped with this. To 2023, basically a regular schedule. We plan on upgrading Townsend's lab next year. Like we have everything planned out until the year 2023 to maintain pace exactly what we have now, not increasing anything. The cost of a copier is $15,000. So in the IPA this year, we're replacing the CSD copier, which is the last copier that we haven't replaced, and it malfunctions on a Mr. Hoover. He repaired it today and it's broken today again. It's down more than it is up, but we couldn't afford that $15,000. We had to get to the IPA. So that's $15,000 of it right there. So it's
It's a
necessity. The school would not function without that IPA. We would be right back to where we were, where I was taking 120 old laptops, coming up with some magic and making them work in a classroom with a totally different, it's just.
Well, and that's where I come from. The interest that we've paid since I came on the board is $38,000, just in interest. So I'm thinking, can we budget $60,000 and still meet, those needs? Or $70,000. That's what I'm trying to figure out. What would that take? We're getting 61, almost 62% aid.
Minus 3.5% of it.
Yeah, that's way out of my ball. That's a Mr. McGuire.
I think it would be very, very helpful for us, especially new coming on the board, is to understand those projections as to how you're keeping pace. And honestly, when you budget things, you're typically not keeping pace. You're trying to increase your, as you go, just from a budgetary standpoint. When you're budgeting, you don't want to budget for your bare minimum just to keep pace, obviously. Right. If you have to fall back to that to save, that's fine. But I think a better understanding of that would give us a clearer picture as to say, okay, this IPA makes sense. Are we going to see more of these in the future? How are they going to actually stack up on a budget? That doesn't look like a big number when it comes to technology for me, but if they're all put together, I can see where it could be. So I think a clearer understanding of that, I think, would help.
The other thing is technology now encompasses this complete building, from the phone to the new camera system. What worries me when we're in this conversation is that budget's going to get bigger, because we just added 200 VoIP phones, almost 100 IP cameras, door access control. That is 100% no longer maintenance. That is technology. And that technology budget is going up. I hate to say that, but there's no way that it can't go up.
And we're
Because
adding-
you're taking all of that and putting it on the technology side now. Classrooms are no longer taught with books. They're taught through software. So like I'm getting pinched nonstop for, can you purchase the software? No, I am booked. Like I don't have any money to give you guys. But we're not spending it on books anymore. So I've already approached Mr. McGuire because somehow we need to get software money. Because they're not teaching with books anymore. It's software.
You've heard me ask many times, what are your roadblocks preventing you from moving forward in education in these areas? This is what I'm asking for.
Right.
What are the actual roadblocks that you see coming? And if it's transferring facilities safety into technology, well, that's not apples and apples, right?
Right.
Now we're saying it's technology, but it's not. It's actually security in there as well.
Right.
So I think we really need to just sit down and get a 30,000 foot view of where you're headed, what's in this budget, and where is it going forward, so that we can do our jobs and help. I mean, that's
where I've spoken to Mr. McGuire, and he's just swamped, and it's hard to get.
Understandably.
Yeah, it really is, because he's still catching up, and we have plans, we all have plans, and we'd like to have that conversation, and we really can't. We've tried, but before this budget year, it's just been extremely difficult. So we have those plans to, we've already sat down and had really good conversations on how I need to plan for every 3 years for, battery backups for the UPSs we just purchased. Like, we have a good understanding, but we need to flush it out, which is exactly what Mr. Dutcher is saying.
Like, obviously, some of these things, require maintenance. The VoIP phone system, that requires maintenance. We go through BOCES, or we used to go through BOCES for a lot of like this type of technology stuff. If something broke, they could possibly repair it or something. Is that still in play? Like for our phone systems, do we have maintenance agreements on that?
We do not have maintenance agreements. We have a 3-year, we have 3-year warranties on most of the phone stuff. 3-year contracts. The technology department is the maintenance department for most of the stuff. We do go through the repair shop at DCMO BOCES.
Okay, the repair shop.
We still do that for our printers, smaller printers, stuff like that. The desktops and stuff we repair in-house. So we have the technicians do that here now. So we don't send much out for that. We do still utilize BT BOCES for our infrastructure. So long story short, I took the internet down the other day right here in the boardroom. I cut a fiber line accidentally, just letting everyone know. I knew what to do, but I called BOCES just to make sure I was fixing it correctly, and they walked me through saying yes, and they walked me through it. So we still utilize BOCES, but we are the repair shop now.
Okay, because that was like at the town level, I don't know if, soil and water, but at the town level, we have a company that we've hired that maintains our printers, and copiers and things like that, where we pay an annual maintenance fee.
We still have that with our printers and copiers through Usherwood.
Okay.
But no, the phones, the door access control, the cameras will be the technology department.
If you keep technology more current, you have the availability to back up with warranties, correct?
Correct.
As
That's
things
back to that
my
3 to
biggest
5
fear
years.
of technology is you get out of date fast, and when you get out of date, there's no support. So it's a necessary evil to keep your technology up to date in order to avoid really costly problems.
Correct, but we also do utilize the extended warranty licenses.
Right.
So when the typical license is 1 to 3 years, for desktops, we utilize that extra, we pay a fee every year, and we do the extra 3 to 5. We add the additional 2 years, just because we're already stretching our budget as it is. So we need to get at least to that 5th year to make our cycle continue. So we do purchase the extended warranty. More often than not, it's worth it.
So who in technology works under you? Like, who is your backup?
Cindy Baker at Townsend.
Okay.
And we have a part-time contract through DCMO BOCES for a part-time technician.
Okay.
We have him 3 days a week.
So like fiber optic lines and, computer things, you have someone that if you're unable to be here, someone else is.
Normal.
Okay. Good.
Just to point out Rick's point, we've had several conversations. The security, we have to add more cameras. That's not done yet. That's got to happen again this summer because there's spots that are that we can't see. The other pieces, which he's correct on, and I'm glad you brought it up, is the classroom. We are still lagging behind with our technology in each of those classrooms. So that technology budget will increase each year. So we either don't increase it and we stay where we're at, which worries me because it worries Rick because we'll be moving backwards, or you need to increase that somehow and keep up with the technology piece on this.
So that's what we need to determine, is our budget line sufficient to pay these annual payments? And in the future, can we afford to increase that for the annual payments? Because if we're at a 5-year payment right now, we're looking at $115,000 for all 5 payments. We just need to make sure that our budget line is matching that. So that doesn't become a shortfall.
So how many contracts do we have out right now? For this?
One comes off June of 18.
Right.
My assumption is we have 5 right now, would be my assumption. Because since I've been here, we've done it every year. So that would put 5 on the books.
And they're how many year?
5 years.
5-year
IPAs.
Okay.
It's my understanding that once you do the first one, the next one's refunded. That kind of is how you build up your budget.
Mm-hmm.
So if you spend $100,000 and you get 60,000 back of it, your budget has, for the next year, you already have that IPA payment there. Then the next year you spend another $100,000, you get another 60,000 back. You now have 120,000 in that budget.
Mm-hmm.
That's my understanding. I could be wrong. So that budgetary is already kind of covered.
So in that cycle, you're gonna have 5.
That's what the aid doesn't cover.
Usually.
Right.
Right?
Correct.
Year 6, okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's reasonable to move this forward, and I think you guys understand where we're coming from. We're asking, we just need a little bit more detail as far as how are your plans going forward to make sure that we're not sitting here just before budget season saying, we have to make a decision to figure this out.
Right.
We just don't want to be in this position again. Just
to be on the same page.
We just need to understand it a little bit better and give you the time to properly do that too. So,
I think that this kind of goes to the same thing we talked about at the, finance committee. It's very much, conversations with Rick and conversations about being able to identify what those things are in each of the account codes that we're paying for would be the same type of thing, all right? How much are we paying Broom in this account code for this particular coaster, and what does it encompass? The IPA would be part of that discussion each time, so we would know what's in there. But I just don't have that level of detail just yet.
and I'd also like to see if you're doing cameras for security, is that really, should it be called out that this is technology / security? Should that be a different code so that people understand that these aren't laptops that you're talking about? You're talking about building security, swipe cards, things like that. I just don't want it. I don't want it lumped on you where everybody says, "Well, the technology budget's out of control."
Right.
Well,
I know Mr. McGuire plans
and then try to figure that out
man.
later. Okay. So I'd like to move the IPA.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, do we have any, do we have any old business? I don't believe we do. All right, now we're up to the adoption of the second reading for number 4210, the nursing policy. We have a.
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, superintendent review.
I just want to give you an update. Mr. Sider, myself, Mrs. Gate met with the YMCA. The YMCA has been a partner with Walton Central School District about 3 years ago. Just to remind you that they started as an after-school program, and it's housed at Townsend. We ended up rolling that into a summer program where they started 2 weeks of a summer camp. Lisa is going to do a summer camp this year for 4 weeks. I'm just going to pass this around. The YMCA Summer Adventure in Walton, because she had a lot of great feedback from it last year. You can take a look at that, which I'm glad, so it's expanding. She will also continue to do the after-school program for the 18-19 school year. But the big news that I really want to talk to you about is the YMCA program. We will be starting 3 things this year for the 18-19 school year. A preschool program, and this will be for kids the year before UPK. They can go a half day or a whole day. What I call a junior kindergarten is for those kids that aren't quite ready for kindergarten, early 4s that might turn 5 before December 1st. So we're excited about that. I know Mrs. Gates talked enthusiastically about that. It's going to be a great program, I think, for our kids here in Walton. And also a need for a full-time UPK so they can attend. So actually, they could attend like a half-day program and then go into the YMCA program, or they can attend a whole-day program and stay there the whole day, and then have after-school babysitting as well. So it's really evolved, and it's a big thing for I want to promote the YMCA, and we're very fortunate to have them in Walton. It's been a great connection for us. And Mr. Snyder's worked very closely with the YMCA as well as Mrs. Gates, so I think it's going to be a successful program. We're going to launch some advertisement. I think is it April?
Well, we're trying to get the brochure out next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
And
we
it'll
had
be
the snow days. PJ was out,
right.
On vacation. Or really, well, he wasn't vacation. He was out. So we're trying to get that out next week. Brochure. One side will be UPK. The flip side will be YMCA information to talk about the program that wraps around the UPK program, or the 3-year-old piece. And then we're going to try to have an April dates to do the UPK submission of applications, and then we're going to do the lottery pick if we have more than 36. If we have fewer than 36 or right at 36, on that day we'll just inform everyone that they're in. And then that way the YMCA can then have their open house and start pushing for that, for the parents to, they'll know whether they're AM or PM for UPK, and then they can start making decisions about that, the extra program.
So just to clarify, if a child is signed up for UPK in the AM, YMCA offers that child to stay for the PM class, or PM.
Right.
But that is, the parent picks up,
Well,
or the parent pays for that, or is this?
No, they have to pay for that.
They do, right, okay.
That's a fee to the YMCA.
Right.
But versus having to worry about trying to find transportation.
And they can actually
And
stay
babysitting.
at 5:30 if they want to. And
Okay.
Yeah.
Plus, they're doing a program. They're extending. They're doing some academic pieces. Learning. I mean, academic at that level. They're doing some learning pieces in addition to what they would get in the UPK setting.
Right, okay. Good.
And nap. I mean, just like playtime and things like that. But yeah, it'd give them a full day.
It's enrichment, so that we can, we catch
Now,
the
do you
kids
think
that-
it'll increase the numbers for UPK though?
Sorry.
Because I know
Yeah,
a
you
lot
want
of
to
times that was a problem where they couldn't find transportation, either, after UPK in the morning or, to bring them.
In past years, except for this year, just because we had, I think there's just a smaller pool of the cohort's smaller.
Mhm.
But in previous years, we might have 2 or 3 parents say, oh, I can't do it because of transportation. But we always had a waiting list, so we always had 36.
Okay,
This year is the first year in a long time that we had fewer than 36, but I think the cohort is just smaller.
Yeah.
Overall, I don't think there are that many babies born that year.
Actually, hopefully it'll increase.
Great.
So I'll keep you updated on that, and we'll put some brochures out, some advertisement. I'll let you know how that's going. Break, as you know, it's early this year, our spring break. It starts, the last day is next Friday. Just so you're aware, we did use 7 snow days already. We do have that extra Monday, Easter Monday off after Easter. And I hear there's another storm coming next week. I plan on talking with Ann, see where we're at after that, so I'll keep you updated on where we're at. But if we do have to use a day, we do have that Easter Monday on there.
There's time for that to go to rain.
so we've used all of our allotted snow days, and then that Easter
We have that
Monday
extra
will
Easter
be a
Monday,
fallback.
right,
Okay.
right. Also, I know April 10th is our budget presentation, and we have a drug addiction evening presentation. So I was wondering, would the board mind maybe moving that up till 5 o'clock The presentation starts at 6 o'clock that evening, and we scheduled it in the fall,
That's,
April 10th. It's our budget presentation.
we had it at 6 and
Correct.
changed it to 5.
If you could just let us know. You don't need to tell us right now, maybe just
Okay.
email Corey,
All right.
if that's possible. Okay. And the last one, today, or tonight, you approved Rob Panuski's resignation. We all know he's leaving to go to Liberty as the high school principal there now. I congratulate him. And I will tell you, he's been a rock here for the last 3 years. He's done some tremendous things at the high school. He's been a leader. He's been a great administrator. He's mentored some individuals, brought in some new concepts. He's worked very well with the administrative team. And he surely will be missed, not only, I don't think, in the high school, but in the community, in the students, and especially with the staff and with the administration. I just want to personally thank you for the job well done. Not that you're leaving now, I know we got some time, but,
Yes.
but today was official that you submitted your resignation. But
I
thank you.
appreciate the opportunity. I'm right here.
I didn't figure it'd do any good to pull that from the consent agenda.
Yeah, Mrs. Wentworth said she was going to do it.
She was, yeah, she was supposed to be here today.
Don't approve that.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
Good luck with you.
And the last thing I had, Tim was just going to give a quick summary on the 18-19 budget.
Quick summary is that we met with the Finance Committee prior to the meeting today, went over some, I guess, just different overriding principles of what we're going to try to get in there. I have a printout that I had given to the members of the Finance Committee that had historical expenditures by account code. We're going to make that available for the rest of you guys to be able to see that. And it starts with 14, 15, 15, 16, 16, 17, and then the current year. So you can get an idea of where we are. I will say that on the end is the 18-19 budget. That will change tomorrow. It changes every day as I work my way through putting in different things. So don't look at the bottom number because it's not necessarily accurate. It's just I'm working through each of the account codes in each of the different departments. And we were going to plan another Finance Committee meeting sometime after break, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, first week of April, I think you said, right?
Yeah, first part of April. Need another one.
Do you have a feel for how far through it you are, getting everything on the account codes? Too early?
My standard is that I will never be comfortable, so that's good for me. That's kind of the way it works. But I have pretty much, we put through all of the employee salaries, made some adjustments and put some things in for all the fringe benefits that are associated with it. And that's probably almost 70% of the budget. And then, and I will go over with Missy again in detail that whole printout just to make sure there isn't something I'm missing, since she's the one who does the payroll. We'll make sure we're not missing anything. And then, once you throw in things like, the BOCES bill and the other debt service stuff, that's kind of pretty solid. That'll be almost 85 to 90%, and then the rest of it is only about 12% of the budget. There is the other items. So.
And I received a little bit of feedback on our last budget meeting. They didn't feel that it was well advertised. It was on our website. I believe it was on the radio the one day.
It was out on our Facebook, Twitter, it's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So maybe I think a lot of people that said that they didn't know about it are the individuals that may not check the website daily.
Mm-hmm.
Like parents, I think they keep up with it, but a lot of them that attend these meetings don't actually check it daily. They may not have Facebook, like me, but maybe we can give a little bit more effort into either putting it on the radio or getting it, now that we know the date, putting it out in the newspaper, just keeping it more geared up to people that don't necessarily check our websites or, are not computer savvy.
Can we have like the village and town board meetings and just as a FYI to them to have them announce that at their meetings as well? Or is the timing not right?
The timing for the village is, they hold theirs, I believe, the first
First
week,
Monday.
but ours is the second, so it would come,
Right after.
it would come after this. But yeah, that's, would be a good idea, just to, yeah, get it out there a little bit more.
I'll do that. I can mention it.
All right, was there,
Good.
did you have anything else?
I don't, no, I'm good.
All right, so we do have a need for exec.
Right.
For, history of a particular.
Particular person.
Okay,
Yeah,
one
right,
history of a
right there.
particular person.
Move it back.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Don't forget to get your paper signed. And Rob, yes. You did an amazing job.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there a conflict of interest?